Roman 22, which provides that the state shall take appropriate steps to encourage people to grow and store adequate food. The Constitution therefore bestows responsibility for the management of the agricultural development with MAIF. This is the basis for which the mandate of the ministry was derived. The mandate of the Ministry of Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries: promote and support sustainable and market-oriented agricultural production, food security, and household incomes. Implementation of this mandate is guided by the mission to transform subsistence farming to commercial agriculture. Madam Chair, I've given a situation analysis, and I'll go to page 6. The Agro-Industrialization Program (NPC), the design of the third National Development Plan, focuses on the programs as a guided framework for implementation of the priority interventions. In total, 15 programs have been identified, and these integrate the effort for the various sectors. The Agro-Industrialization AGI program is the primary program for which the agricultural sector will contribute. However, the agricultural sector will also contribute to and also derive support from the programs. Agro-industrialization goal and outcome targets. The key results to be achieved over the next 5 years are: increased total export value of processed agricultural commodities, coffee, tea, fish, dairy, meat, and maize and its products from $1 billion to $4 billion. Reduce the total value imported cereals and cereal preparations, vegetable fats and oils, sugar preparation from $931 million to $500 million. Increase the agricultural sector growth rate from 3.8% to 6%. Increase labor productivity in the agro-industry value chain, value added $, per worker from $616 to $850. Increase the number of jobs created in agro-industry along the value chain by 500,000. Reduction in the percentage and those dependent on subsistence agriculture as main source of livelihood from 68.9% to 55%. Increase the proportion of households that are food secure from 60% to 80%. For strategic direction for MAIF, the strategic direction of MAIF aims to achieve the government of Uganda national aspirations of food and nutrition security, increased household income, and promotion of import substitution and exports through implementation of agro-industrialization program of the NDP3. Madam Chair, we also look in his set of national address, His Excellency, the President highlighted the following key objectives for the agriculture sector. A, the need to sustainably increase production and productivity of the priority commodities identified by the government. The need to strengthen the integration between agricultural production system with industry, thus creating the necessary synergies to attract private entrepreneurs. The specific medium-term 5 years objectives of the agricultural industrialization program already listed above. Implementation of the strategic objectives in the agro-industrialization program will entail all-inclusive approach, not provide support to both the public and private sector to spur growth across identified agricultural commodity value chain, and these commodities include banana, cassava, beans, maize, Irish potato, sweet potato, millet, cattle for beef and leather, cattle for dairy products, fish, coffee, tea, cocoa, textiles, cotton, fruit and vegetables, cashew nuts, avocado, and macadamia. If I may go to page 12. Yes, page 12 shows the diagrammatic presentation of the value chain actors in the nucleus farmer zoning model. This is very important. Registered farmers, groups, association, and agriculture credit and agricultural insurance. We want to link agriculture to credit and to insurance to make sure that actually we do farming as a business. So page 13 shows the table, the sector financial performance for the end of year 2019-20 for both the government of Uganda and external financing. Table 5.2, agriculture sector financial half-year performance for the year 2021, which we have gone through. Madam Chair, we have given a table indicating performance of various votes, and since we are constrained by time, you can go through and as you rightly said, you are meeting us with all the agencies and they are all here present, and I've summarized all of them up to page up to page covering the entire sector, up page 47. I would like to go to page 48 and highlight major challenges, spending pressures for votes in 1920-21. Madam Chair, I have indicated in the table to show the financial gap, what has been sought, what has been given, and the financial gap. As earlier discussed with you one-to-one, agriculture, we have a lot of expectation in the agricultural sector, but we are not putting in the money to push it forward. And this provides a very, very, very big challenge, which I have shared with you at the personal level and some of your committee members. We have put them down for you to appreciate for every agency so that you can make your report from an informed position. Madam Chair, honorable colleagues, members, I beg to move. Then maybe allow me to go to the response to the issues raised, the attachment.
think you can leave because now we're not going to discuss it. If we go into the responses for the budget.
Okay. Now, you warned me that we don't have enough time to go into every details, and we have carried one member for the sugar factory, which is under the NADS. And I think maybe you'll find the time.
Maybe we can give you time to speak about it. Is that the Atiak sugar?
Yes, that's sugar.
You need to hear about it.
9.6. Page 52.
If you can go to page 52. (9.6). Vote 152, National Agriculture Advisory Services. Funding under the PPP to acquire 180,000 tons of cane seed and support planting of 60,000 acres of sugarcane in Atiak in order to boost the sugar industry. We required 98.6 billion, and we are allocated 0 on the item, and the funding gap is still 98.6, madam. So establishment of regional farm service, engineering, design, construction, and equipment, equipping the centers. We have been given 25% of what is required, and 75% is the funding gap. Excuse me.
These are different from the sugar.
Yes, but I cannot isolate the item. So, Madam Chair, so the issue of the Atiak Sugar Factory, we need your support, and I thought it was important to note.
Honorable Minister, maybe you give one of your technocrats, maybe the PS, take the committee through these funding pressures for each fund. In summary, we need it.
Can you take us through?
This is from page 48. Yes?
There's a table on page 34 which is very
Page 34.
Page 41.
Yes.
Maybe you can summarize it.
The table on the, you start from the page 34, that table there. Take members through it.
And Chair, specifically, maybe just to preempt since that time, and you know we have two committees concurrently running, Chair. Chair, I just wanted to know on that one. Chair,
Yes, Honorable.
Chair, like on what code 01010, I wanted an explanation because it is very significant. Because whereas the wage bill is largely the same, but I want them to explain to account for the decline because they have had interactions. To account for the decline in the non-wage, domestic development, and external financing on that table. Given that this is one of the major critical sectors in NDP3, so how do you account for the decline? Whereas the wage bill is the same, but there's a decline in non-wage. What accounts for that? A decline in domestic development, what accounts for that? because you must have had interaction with what was it. I don't know. Then,
Honorable colleagues, I was requesting that we allow the PS to take us through as we take notes. I'm going to give you time to raise those concerns. Kindly.
see, I just want to beg and I just want to raise my question that I run to another committee.
Right.
That's my.
For your sake, yes. But the rest of the colleagues just take
Yeah.
note.
Because I'll leave the. I have another meeting right now, committee, which is concurrent with the chair. I just beg for your indulgence. Then, Chair, I also want to know that the government is reorganizing. Chair, government is reorganizing, and I don't see it coming out strongly in the presentation of the minister. Government is reorganizing itself through a program approach, and our Minister of Agriculture is a lead sector in this agro-industrialization sector. But I do not see it I don't see it coming out clearly, because I'm seeing them going the old way, the former way. But this we are going to have the first year. This coming year is going to be the first year of a new arrangement of program-based approach, and I don't see it coming out clearly. The minister highlighting to us how they are going to champion this agro-based industrialization, and I see somewhere in page 38 here, increasing access to and use of agricultural mechanization. I want to know how the ministry is reorganizing this, because we want to avoid the situation like 05 page 38. Increase access and use of agricultural mechanization. And among the interventions I see, expand and equip regional agricultural mechanization and service centers, and so on and so on. They're already written there. I want to know how the ministry, because this is a lead ministry, what we want to know to capture in the interest in the BFP actually is, this will come in the policies, but in this we want to know how the ministry is reorganizing that approach, so as we got the program based. For instance, the emphasis is on avoiding scattering interventions, because that's the idea in this thing, and we are going to make sure that, because yesterday we had a challenge with the other day, Finance was blaming Parliament for allowing, Minister of Finance was blaming Parliament for allowing programs to be scattered everywhere. And our argument was that this thing starts from the executive. But they agree that sometimes they're overwhelmed and they expect us to do the oversight and avoid that scattering. But I'm seeing, because I was looking at some of these things and I was looking at the main document, you see, like, I want to know how you are going to reorganize, for instance, mechanization, because you have got some of these things scattered, the CDO doing the same thing, and yet you have to talk about agricultural mechanization, manufacturing plants, you are talking about the options in agricultural mechanization and so on, maintenance, things like that. So I want to know, basically, what strategy the ministry is coming up to consolidate these interventions in the new approach the government has come up with, the program-based approach, rather than the old system of things are just scattered here and there. Chair, for me, that is a major thing. The rest maybe I will get a response, since the clerk will capture, the clerk will capture some of these responses, but for me that is where I would be much interested. The reorganization strategy and how are we going to avoid the scattering, not just, but even others interventions, Chair. If I can get now, fine, but if I can't get, still I can capture later.
Thank you, Honorable Colleague. If I remember when we made
Yes.
The budget officer look at the concerns that you are raising.
Yes.
And if you have a copy of this issue paper,
It's not clear.
can I give the budget officer 1 minute to allay the fears of the honorable member?
The chair should come from the other side.
Yeah, but our side had also captured it, honorable member.
And the responses are there.
So, honorable minister, can you respond to his concern that we had captured it here?
Well, it is on page 5. On page 5, how the above intervention is going to be achieved practically. And we have provided the answer. But if I can answer him specifically, because he's worried about scattering the resources, that we have got a department responsible for mechanization, and we are strengthening it. We are buying more equipment at the region, and we plan, as you look at page 38, where you are rising, bullet 3, actually bullet 4, we are purchasing more tractors and use them to the farming groups, mainly cooperatives. Because we know that cooperatives can maintain tractors rather than giving them to the sub-counties. And where we have done it, it has given us a lot of mileage. Because even the small holders with higher tractors, those who are not able to buy the tractors, once they are in the cooperative, then they can use the tractors. Then generally, those concerns on our issue paper response is on page 5. If you want me to specifically look at that one, can I read it?
Yes, honorable.
The question was, how is the above intervention going to progressive farmers will be identified and each district and supported with extension services, demonstration inputs, equipment and post-service handling facilities, so as to serve as a model for the other farmers to learn from the best practice. Similarly, your farmers will be identified and supported with advisory services, subsidized productivity. These farmers equally are the ones who own tractors as farming groups. So, but I would request, Madam Chair, that we answer comprehensively.
Yes. It's okay. From your concerns. It is okay, Honorable Minister. I wanted us to move systematically. But then the Honorable Member, who also doubles as a member of the Budget Committee, wanted to raise his concerns before he can join his colleagues in the Budget Committee. I think by then we had wanted the PS to take us through from page 34, where there was a table. Honorable colleague, we shall take those concerns and update you accordingly. Yes, otherwise we shall be bogged down and we may fail to present before the Budget Committee. So, Honorable PS.
Thank you very much, dear. And honorable members. We are on page 34. Looking at comparison of the agro-industrialization program approved budget for the year 2020-2021 and then the allocations for financial year 2021-2022 as provided by the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. Vote 10, that is MAIF. In the financial year 2020-2021, total allocation is excluding external financing is 162.86 billion, and total including external financing is 727.39 billion. Ministry of Water and Environment, which is also in the agro-industrialization program, was allocated a total of 213.57 billion. DDA, it has 10.02 billion. KCCA, which gets the agriculture grant, it has 7.19 billion. NABRIC DB, it has 73.06 billion. NARO, 110 billion. NAD Secretariat, it has 152 billion. CDO, 8.62 billion. UCDA, 105.88 billion. The local government on commercial services, 126.86 billion. Now, in the financial year 2021-2022, MAIF has a total allocation of 546.3 billion. Ministry of Water and Environment, 212.84 billion. DDA, 8.71 billion. KCCA, 7.19 billion. NABRIC DB, 72.31 billion. NARO, 105.29 billion. NAD Secretariat, 131.84 billion. CDO, 8.04 billion. UCDA, 89.86 billion. And the local government has 126.86 billion. Then we have agri-led interventions, which are left out. On the next page, the table had ended. The total allocation for the year 2021-2022 is 1,509.26 billion. I can take you through the analysis of the program, vote budget allocation for financial year 2021-2022. The approved budget to the agriculture sector in the current financial year 2020-2021 is Uganda shillings 1.534 trillion out of the national MTEF of 36.109 trillion, representing a 4.25% allocation to the sector. The projected MTEF for the agriculture sector in the financial year 2021-2022 is 1.509 trillion out of the national MTEF of 34.499 trillion, representing a 4.37% allocation to the program. It should also be noted that in absolute terms, the sector MTEF has reduced by 25 billion. Most of the reduction is on the non-wage, recurrent, and domestic development components of the MTEF. And I believe this is the same question the Member of Parliament was asking about. And maybe to briefly answer that, if he has left, Ministry of Finance would be the best person to answer this, because this position was completely different until it was changed by Ministry of Finance. We wrote a letter objecting to that, because basically the non-wage which has been affected, and as a sector there is no way we are going to operate, because ours is a field ministry. to operate without travel, inland, and allowances, and to be generalized like other sectors which are non-field, we thought it was a little bit unfair, and it is going to stifle our operations in the program. So we would request that at an opportune moment, the Minister of Finance would be invited to explain why the sector is being suffocated in terms of the way we operate. Because we are not an office ministry, we are a field ministry, and most of these items have actually been removed without actually, I would say, consent.
Madam Chair, pardon. We have raised this matter in Cabinet. We are in the export program. And if you look at the agencies and specialized departments, especially for regulation, this control requires the commissioners to move up and down, to diagnose, to vaccinate, requires movement. You recently had a challenge of exporting European Union. If the inspectors cannot go to the gardens, cannot move, then really we are not working. Agencies like DDA, their job is really to move day and night. Fisheries, to regulate. If you don't regulate, we have issues. So we have raised this, and I think members of parliament can also add on. But this is a serious matter. It's like agriculture, it's like police, it's like the army, because our money facilitates the officers to do regulation, to do extension service, to do diagnosis, to vaccinate, to maintain standards of the products we export.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Now we move on to the various votes. We move to page 48. There are pages and we go to page 48, where we would like to go through the major challenges and spending pressures per vote. Madam Chair and members, 9.1, which is MAIF, value chain focused training of extension workers, which the minister has been talking about, we requested for 6 billion. The allocation is 1.2 billion, leaving a gap of 4.8 billion. Rolling out of proven extension services delivery models to facilitate technology dissemination by promoting various agriculture extension service delivery models, which include the nucleus farmer model, which was well elaborated in the document. We required 42 billion and there was no allocation. So the gap is 42 billion. Conducting artisan focused training of extension workers in conjunction with Industrial Training Institute. The requirement was 35 billion and nothing was allocated, with a pressure of 35 billion. Extension staff trained and equipped in inspection, certification, and regulation. The pressure is 8 billion and no allocation, leaving the same gap of 8 billion.
Madam Chair and honorable members, through our research before we established the extension, it was proved that we cannot move away from subsistence if we don't do extension. The assumption that the farmers will demand for the services was very wrong. So we need the agriculture extension officers to go down to supervise, to stimulate, to direct, to make sure that they will the farmers produce up to post-harvest standard. But if you see the response is that no money is given, and the directorate was re-established. Even for the Ken, for this man who is there, for us to really do meaningful program for industrialization, we need extension. And in the absence of money for extension, I think you know what it means.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Chair.
Mr. PS, just a minute. Honorable Minister, we have agricultural products before us on the tables. We encourage your team to make good use of them. You're welcome. There's tea, there's bananas, there's everything here. There's coffee.
The smartest food.
Thank you.
The Chair and Honorable Members, of course not to leave about the Honorable Minister, you've heard the Minister clearly elaborating that we had an issue with our exports to the EU recently, with our inspectors, increasing the number of inspectors, going out in the field, work with the farmers to see that we are compliant, and indeed we passed the audit. But we noted that we have some pests which we cannot do away with. There are some pests which actually forbidden in EU, and we may not be able to do away with them on the farms. And these would require a treatment facility using gamma ray radiation technology for pest treatment of horticulture exports and imports established at exit points. And the requirement was 40 billion, and there was no allocation to that. Established 2 animal holding grounds, 2 quarantine stations, and 3 animal checkpoints. We required 18.7 billion, but received 10 billion, leaving a gap of 8.7. And this is key in the export of beef to other markets. Construct micro, small-scale irrigation schemes. We needed 20 billion, we were allocated 5 billion, leaving a gap of 15 billion. Construction of community valley tanks. We required 18 billion, we were given half, leaving a gap of 9 billion. Develop designs, construct and equip 2 regional mechanization service centers. We required 10 billion, the allocation was 5 billion, leaving a gap of 5. Acquisition and deploy assorted sets of agriculture mechanization equipment, heavy equipment and machinery units. The requirement was 10 billion, we got 4 billion, leaving a gap of 6 billion. Procure and deploy 160 tractors with all implements to farming communities. Of course, these are the cooperatives the minister mentioned about. We needed 20.8 billion, we got 13.5, leaving a gap of 7.3 billion. 1,000 acreage of bush cleared and plowed. We needed 12 billion, we got 2.5 billion, leaving a gap of 9.5 billion. Develop and operationalize the livestock identification and traceability system and animal health information management system. We needed 2 billion, but we didn't get anything. And this is very key for exports and even for our local consumption. Undertake a national farmer registration exercise through multi-agency technical and steering committee oversight, MAIF, UBOS, MTIC, Minister of Local Government, Minister of Finance, with OWC. We needed 30 billion, but there was no allocation, leaving the pressure of 30. Undertake cessation control and surveillance activities. We needed 12 billion, we got 3, leaving a gap of 9 billion. Support and create an enabling environment for bee, apiary farmers and processors. We needed 5 billion, we got 1, leaving a gap of 4. Complete modalities for engaging the private sector to set up pesticide, acaricide, animal vaccine, and drug manufacturing in country, conduct feasibility studies, draft national veterinary medicine bills. We needed 6.5 billion, there was no allocation, leaving a gap of the same amount, 6.5. Acquire vaccines for state-controlled economic animal diseases. We needed 20 billion, we allocated 8 billion, leaving a gap of 12. Support the development of a comprehensive tick control program, we needed 5 billion, we allocated 1.3 billion, leaving a gap of 3.7 billion. Procurement of assorted tick acaricides, requirement was 20 billion, we got 8, leaving a gap of 12. Design, construct, and stock 201-acre fish ponds to support youth and women fish farmers, mainly in the areas which were affected when we moved illegal fishing from the lakes. We needed 20 billion, we got 2.5 with a gap of 17.5. Conduct feasibility studies, design and construct community fish dyeing racks. We needed 8 billion, we did get the allocation. Madam Chair and members, allow me to take you through 9.2, which is water for production. And we are doing this with Ministry of Water and Environment. Commence construction of one large-scale irrigation scheme at Kabuyanda in Isingiro district. Now 30% physical progress has been completed. We needed 30 billion, we got 6 billion, with a gap of 24 billion. Complete the irrigation schemes under construction or rehabilitation, including Dogo 2, Mobuku 2, Wadelai, Tochi, Ngenge, Rengaju, and Oren in districts of Utareja, Kasese, Pakwach, Oyam, Pwen, Kabarole, and Lira. 100% physical progress. We needed 140 billion, but we got 100.97 billion, leaving a gap of 39.03 billion. Implementation of solar-powered water supply and irrigation systems. We required 20.5 billion, we received 4.1, leaving us with a gap of 16.4 billion. Detailed designs of multi-purpose dams at Lemsui in Amudat, Nakonyen in Moroto, and Nangolo Olokolon in Kotido, 100% progress. 22.2 billion was required, we received 4 billion with a gap of 16.1 billion. Madam Chair, allow me to invite my colleague from DDA to take us through 9.3.
Thank you. DDA.
Yes. 9.3 goes to 1. DDA strengthen to improve delivery and development and education services through wages, salaries of the key staff, of critical staff for industrialization, management, and other support functions. We budgeted for 18.758 billion, for allocation 5.481 billion. We have a funding gap of 13 billion. Incentives for acquisition of refrigerated trucks and warehouses at border points, and including site development through supervision of support, acquired trucks, storage warehouses, and transportation equipment to engage trade and procurement of tricycles for farmers to be able to deliver meat to the collecting centers. We budgeted for 1.368 billion, we received 0.027, and we have a funding gap of 1.341 billion.
Easy. We already know this detail. We are requesting that you take us through the totals. Now, the managers, the executive directors of the agencies, the accounting officers, can you just give this committee the 5 priorities you would like the committee to look at? And I'm reading all this, just 5. Just 5 from each agency.
Madam Chair,
Only 5.
if I may intervene. You see, EDA is the regulator. And if they don't do it, then we have the industry. So one of the priorities is captured number one. So if you don't have the regulators visiting factories, visiting milk coolers, mounting roadblocks, testing batches for export, we have inspectors at the border to stop illicit dairy products coming in the country. So they are really constrained. And the other one is staffing. Regulation was 18 billion points. They have a funding gap of 13.
Then, Madam Chair,
ACD,
yeah, the rehabilitation and upgrading of our dairy training school to be able to mentor cottage industry and create jobs for technical jobs in milk handling. We had budgeted for 3.8 and we got 3.4. Madam Chair, this is very technical. This is very relevant to us. And then, as the Minister has said, regulation, our exports are subject to quality standards to the countries where we export. Without good quality, we cannot export anything. So it is priority that we improve our regulatory services, equip our laboratories, strengthen our system to do surveillance, mobile laboratory vans be able to take the services and conduct the regulatory services in the field is key to us. And then, Madam Chair, as you know, when the investor of dairy corporation took place, there are some areas where government had invested in milk collecting centers and they are defunct. We have been rehabilitating some and we feel it is priority. If we are to develop dairy activities all over the country, these areas must be taken care of.
The infrastructure.
So we need to continue rehabilitating them. And Madam Chair, on a very good note, we have to note that
And I'm
we have
coming
been able
tomorrow
to
too.
get most of the land titles which we never had. And those land titles whose leases had ended were able, have been able to renew the leases and get freehold in some cases. So the progress in acquisition of assets on land is going on well, but we acquire, but we don't rehabilitate. So we need to rehabilitate them so that we can have direct government activities in those areas. That is priority for us.
yes, can we hear from the budget officer?
Just a small interjection, Madam Chair. For purposes of guidance, you know, when you're trying to set up something in terms of unfunded priorities to budget committee, when it's too loaded, it becomes very difficult to save. So we had actually included in the responses that we had indicated at least 5 priorities of priorities. If that is, so that it's maybe in terms of, like for instance, votes, we can say maybe for dairy, let's pick 1 or 2. Maif, because it's a bigger state, maybe we can have maximum of 5, so that it's easy to save. And secondly, they were advised that we are focusing on economic recovery after the COVID-19 pandemic. So let us look at interventions which are geared towards the agro-industrialization program, so that we can be able to let this, like for instance, the member of budget committee, whereas the stakeholders may not be there, let us have something which is
They are
sellable to budget committee and which is engineered towards agro-industrialization and let
infrastructure
it be
and
focused
equipment.
to stimulating the growth the prices of
I agree with her.
That was what I wanted to advise.
No, we agree. Because mainly is regulation, equipment, and infrastructure. The rest you can hang on, but those ones are very key. You know, we are beginning to export to West Africa.
Number one regulation, Minister Davis. Infrastructure development
And equipment.
and equipment. Infrastructure development and equipment. And then recruitment of more critical technical staff. Scientists to do the work.
The turnover is
Because
very
education
high.
is done by scientists.
Madam Chair, actually, I was directing this direction to the PS because the PS, you are the overall in terms of managing all the institutions. For us, we wanted one consolidated thing. We'll see how we prioritize among the priorities. That's what I'm doing.
How much time do we have? How much time do we have to do it?
They were telling us we are supposed to report to budget committee today, but probably, I don't know how far. So
No.
we need to work around.
Those are the three. One is regulation. Number two is staffing. Number three is infrastructure and equipment. Just package them properly.
I would request that maybe we sit as accounting officers and have a summary.
I think so.
Then we may not have to go through the hearing.
It will be smarter.
I think it is better. It is better. Let's adapt that position. You sit as accounting officers
Yeah.
and you give us 5
Okay, we're going to do that. We'll do that, yeah.
have what?
Probably by today, because you have
By
to do
today.
this.
Yeah, we are going to sit after here.
Well,
Per
in
vote.
order to present it to the budget committee.
Yes.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
in addition to that, I felt there are some components that can be combined. For example, we talk of bill collection centers, and so on. They can also include in the increase,
Different outputs, so they can.
Yeah,
be
okay,
organic,
different
and then we
outputs.
capture it.
So, yeah, we are going to sit. Here, after here, we are going to sit. Then we shall hand over to her.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
It's okay. Then that means we now go to the
Responses.
Responses.
We had started.
Yeah, let's go to responses.
Here, we request the person who compiles the responses to help you and hand over to him to take us Kauka.
Madam Chair, allow me to ask one of my staff, Kauka. Is Kauka here? You better take a seat and read the responses. Yes, let's break the rules. Kauka, you can sit there.
So, Madam Chair and members, these are the issues and the responses. Now, issue number one, we have the table which was presented there. Page 2. Issue number one, arising from the table presented, there was a question which was, according to the table, Uganda shillings 2.81 billion is required to implement the agro-industrialization program. Of these funds being provided, that was the question. And this is our response. The Uganda shillings 2.81 billion is the required amount to effectively implement the planned interventions of the agro-industrialization program in the financial year 2021-2022. However, government, through the Ministry of Finance, ran a MTF for 2021 financial year of Uganda shillings 509 billion, which leaves a deficit of 1,372 billion. The Ministry is engaging Ministry of Finance to bridge the gap and request for support with the relevant committees of Parliament. Honorable Chair, that was our response. Now, this issue number 2 on agriculture production and agro-industrialization. The question was, there's detail which is there, which came from the committee, which Madam Chair, if I leave the detail, I'll read the question and get the answer. The question was, what specific interventions are being provided by the ministry in order to ensure that certain households are not left behind? Issues of inequalities, i.e., widening the gap between the rich and the poor farmers. And the response was, the ministry, through the agro-industrial program, has planned interventions that will entail an all-inclusive approach that provides support to both the public and the private sectors to spur growth across identified agriculture commodity value chains. The commodities have been prioritized based on 3 pillars, namely boosting food production and nutrition security, import substitution, and export promotion. This categorization is inclusive and ensures that all categories of farmers are accommodated. The commodities include banana, cassava, beans, maize, Irish potatoes, sweet potatoes, millet, cattle for beef, and leather. Cattle for dairy products, fish, coffee, tea, tobacco, textiles, brackets cotton, fruits, vegetables, cashew nuts, and macadamia. The planned interventions are intended to 1. Increase agriculture production and productivity through use of improved seed, planting, breeding, and stocking materials, use of water for agriculture production, mechanization, pests, vectors, and disease control, extension service provision, etc. For example, Uganda shillings 15.5 billion has been earmarked for procurement and distribution of seed and vegetative materials, and 8.0568 billion for livestock stocking materials for financial 2021-22. And we have the other pillars which are there in the AGI program, that is on improving post-service handling and storage of agriculture products, issues of increasing agriculture processing and value addition through provision of agro-processing tools and equipment, issues of increasing market access and the competitiveness of agriculture products in domestic and international markets by ensuring quality and standards, and finally, increase the mobilization, access, and utilization of agricultural finance as a key driver of production, agro-processing, value addition, and storage. That was our response. Then, the other issue was regarding to the above, on progressive farmers and nucleus farmers. There was a question down there, how is the above intervention going to be achieved practically? Our response was, progressive farmers will be identified in the key district and supported with extension services, demonstration inputs, equipment, and post-service handling facilities, so as to serve as a model for other farmers to learn from on best practices. Similarly, nucleus farmers will be identified and supported with the advisory services, subsidized productivity enhancing inputs, post-harvest handling, storage, stock, bulking, and value addition facilities. For acquisition of high-level infrastructure and machinery, the farmers will be recommended and linked to Microfinance Support Center, UDB, for affordable credit. Outgrower farmers around the Lucas farm will be mobilized and supported with the extension services as well as subsidized production and farm post-harvest handling facilities. So that was our response. Now the next question arose from C of supporting integrated planning and implementation of interventions under the agro-industrialization program to promote the silo, to remove the silo mentality. And the question was elaborate on the intervention. Now this is the response. Institutional structures for the management of program implementation will comprise of 4 levels. 1, Apex platform. 2, Office of the Prime Minister and clusters. 3, the Program Leadership Committee. And 4, the Program Working Group. And 5, Technical Working Group. This will bring together government institutions, MDAs, and local governments, and partners engaged in the implementation of the program at different levels, political, policy, and technical, to drive the implementation of the program. A secretariat headed by the Permanent Secretary and coordinated by the Head of Policy and Planning Department from the Ministry will provide coordination and administrative support to these structures. This program implementation arrangements will follow government existing process cycles that are defined through the various events, including strategic planning and annual planning, budget and budget execution, monitoring, reporting, and evaluation. These processes will be guided by statistics, stock data. All key stakeholders will, in a coordinated manner, participate in this process as guided by existing policies, laws, guidelines, regulations, and procedures that will be issued from time to time by responsible government entities to the program.
Colleagues, can you listen to the responses?
So, proceeding, now on implementation oversight, the Program Implementation Action Plan, PIAP, implementation oversight will be spearheaded by independent arms of government and civil society. This will include Parliament, Cabinet, the Presidency, in brackets, Apex platform, CSOs, and other special interest groups. These shall participate in providing key guiding policy checks and balances, as well as providing independent review and evaluation reports. The program planning, budgeting, and execution arrangements shall be overseen by non-direct implementing entities, including OPM, Finance, NPA, and Office of the President. CSOs will also provide independent assessments on the performance of the action plans. This shall provide strategic guidance in the form of planning, budgeting, reporting, and budget execution through sector working group coordinator and directly to independent agencies under the sector. The program working group shall oversee the execution of the strategic guidance issued. MDAs and all key program actors will participate under guidance of the program working group in the following implementation processes, events, including strategic planning, project development, annual planning, and budgeting and performance reviews. Then, D, on issues of mechanization, irrigation mechanization, the concern was the cross-cutting of interventions across the Ministry of Agriculture and also the Ministry of Water and Environment. And the questions was, where, how much has been allocated to each sector for this specific intervention? The responses are, now on micro and small scale irrigation schemes up to 100 hectares is a mandate of the ministry. Then the medium and small scale irrigation schemes, Ministry of Water is responsible for off-farm infrastructure, while agriculture is responsible for on-farm infrastructure and facilities. The allocation for Ministry of Water and Environment is 212.84 billion, while for MAIF is 213.61 billion. Now, for construction of 1,000 micro and small irrigation schemes to be undertaken under the UGIFT program implemented by MAIF, total cost for 1,000 irrigation schemes is 25 billion. That money is to go to agriculture. And the cost of the completion of ongoing irrigation schemes under Ministry of Water and Environment is 6.38 billion. Now, for the regional mechanization centers, this under MAIF, the budget is 13.5 billion. So we're showing who is responsible and what is the budget. Now the next question was, who is answerable to the overall outcome? And this is the response. Within the framework of the program approach, the two ministries jointly plan and execute interventions. While the ministries have different outputs based on their mandates, in this case, micro and small-scale irrigation establishments are directly under MAIF, while completion of ongoing irrigation schemes is under Ministry of Water and Environment. The overall outcome of increased water for production is a shared result of the two ministries. The outputs may be different because we have different mandates, but the result, the outcome is one and shared. Then, moving through post-harvest handling, going downwards, the question was, how much has been allocated for the multi-fruit processing factories in each of the sub-regions? The answers are, for the Greater Masaka Fruit Processing Facility is 9 billion, and an additional 5.34 billion for Noya Multipurpose Fruit Processing Facility, and we also have Uganda shillings 0.7 billion for the engineering and design studies and plans for the proposed fruit factory for Usoga sub-region. That was the response. Then we have a question which was raised. What were the criteria used to decide on the allocation of the factories or industries? The response is, feasibility studies were conducted, we're on page 10. Feasibility studies were conducted to guide on the establishment of the fruit processing facilities in the sub-regions to address post-harvest losses and provide market for farmers' produce. The facilities are established in areas with high production levels to sustain the processing capacity of factories. So that was what guided where the factories should be located. Then the question was, has the government provided funds for the 15 grain millers, 5 rice millers, and the 5 coolers? Response, the ministry, through NADS, has provided 1.2 billion for the 15 maize and feed mills, Uganda shillings 1 billion for the 5 rice mills, and Uganda shillings 1.5 billion for the 5 sets of milk coolers and matching generators in various sub-regions. That was the response. Then the next question was, how much has been provided for the completion of the development and expansion of existing agro-industries? When are they expected to be completed? Mentioned in two above. The response is, the projects mentioned in two above are projects to be completed in financial year 2022-23. There are no plans for development or expansion of existing industries. Then there was a question on agricultural research. Which the government will enhance research and development in fast maturing and high-yielding crops varieties, improved animal breeds, and the development of pesticides and animal vaccines that are affordable. On-station trials of 4 antique vaccine molecules, the rehabilitation and equipping of agricultural research institutions, including 3 research laboratories at Nafori, multipurpose vaccine research and production laboratory at Naliri, and food biosciences laboratory at Kawanda will be done. In addition, 2 research laboratories will be equipped, one for tea research at Revitaba, and an animal breeding research laboratory at Naliri for specialized analytical platforms to support product development, and services will be equipped. Okay. Then there was a question. This is a common question. It keeps coming, but I hope this time the answers are elaborate and will come again. What efforts have been put in place by the ministry to mitigate the use of counterfeit pesticides? The response: there are various interventions undertaken by the ministry to mitigate the use of counterfeit. These include registration of dealers, premises, and products, placement of inspectors at the entry points of the country, and enforcement of pre-export verification of conformity to ensure compliance of imported products within applicable Uganda standards, etc. We have brought on board the agriculture police. Then there is routine market surveillance, inspection, and enforcement. We have undertaken training programs for the safe use of agriculture pesticides for all agriculture chemicals dealers and commercial farmers, undertaking national level media campaigns, building capacity through training and technical backstopping at local governments, intensifying nursery certification and distribution systems for quality vegetable propagated materials, equipping and facilitating laboratory analysis. So several of these interventions are in the ministry, and we hope we shall deal with issues of the counterfeits. Then, this was regarding, again, research, where there was, what timelines are there for these programs? The timelines are as follows. 1, for equipping the 3 research laboratories at Nafori in Mukono district, multipurpose vaccine research and production laboratory at National Livestock at Naliri, and food bioscience laboratory at Kawanda in Wachiso, it is 31st of June. That will have been done. Then the equipping of the 2 research laboratories, still research at Revitaba in Chenyonjo, and animal breeding research laboratory at Naliri, the Cheksasa, it is 31st of June 2022. And then the completion of geographical trials and on-station trials of 4 anti-tick vaccine molecules is 31st of June 2022. And then enhancement of research and development in fast maturing and high-yielding crops varieties is a continuous process which is open-ended. It has no time date that will stop here because it's a continuous process. And then improved animal breeds and the development of pesticide timelines is 30th of June 2023. Then we have extension services, whereby the question on the extension services was, have the funds been provided for recruitment of the specified value chain extension workers for financial 21-22? If so, how much response? The answer is yes. 1.1 billion was allocated. The question is this adequate? That's the question. But 1.1 billion was allocated. Question 2, have the funds been provided for ICT-enabled agriculture extension supervision system? The response is yes. 10 billion was allocated. Then, when we move forward, there was a question on the cooperatives. Next page. How much has been allocated in financial 21-22 for supporting cooperatives? Is there a legal framework to support these processes? The response was, government has allocated 32.8 billion in the financial 2021-22 to support cooperatives. Out of that, 23 billion will compensate cooperative unions and societies which lost properties during the war. Uganda shilling 9 billion is subvention to warehouse receipt system authority. Then on the legal system, there is a legal framework which covers the National Cooperatives Policy, Cooperative Society Amendment Act 2020, and the Uganda Warehouse Research System Act 2006. Then, on agricultural financing, there is a question which followed on the various interventions under agriculture financing, the question was, are these interventions which are cross-cutting other sectors? Are there interventions which are cross-cutting other sectors? If so, how are these interventions going to be achieved? The response is, the implementing agencies of ACF is the Agriculture Credit Facility, are Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Bank of Uganda, and participating financial institutions. The Uganda Agriculture Insurance Scheme is a PPP between government and a consortium of insurance companies and the private sector. The government of Uganda, through the Ministry of Finance, provides a subsidy on the premiums paid by the farmers, 50%, small-scale farmers, 30%, large-scale farmers, and the farmers pay the balance. The consortium of private sector markets and sells the premium to farmers and then covers their enterprises. MAIF has been providing technical assistance as and when approached. Then the other question was, is there an aspect of resource sharing across sectors in these interventions? If so, how is it going to be done? The response is, currently, there is no resource sharing among the sectors. The overall implementation is under Ministry of Finance through Bank of Uganda. So there are no resources to be shared because the implementation is Ministry of Finance through Bank of Uganda. And then the other question was, how often are the program interventions supposed to be reported on? If annually, how realistic or accurate will these reports on interventions be? These are the ACF interventions. And the response is, Bank of Uganda reports to the Ministry of Finance on a quarterly basis. That's the response. But it was how often they report, quarterly basis. Then we had additional issues. Provide a list of the beneficiaries of the agriculture credit facility, and then what is the modus operandi for the ACF facility? The committee wanted the list, and the response is, government in partnership with the commercial banks established an agriculture credit facility in financial year 2019 to be lent to borrowers at interest rate not exceeding 10% per annum for a maximum period not exceeding 8 years. The scheme is used primarily to provide medium and long-term financing to projects engaged in agriculture and agro-processing. Eligible projects include agriculture machinery, post-harvest handling equipment, storage, agro-processing facilities, and any other related agricultural and agro-processing machinery and equipment. The primary security for the scheme is the machinery and equipment financed, and other marketable securities provided by the borrower if required. The PFIs are responsible for the credit appraisal of eligible borrowers and bear up to 50% of the credit risk of the principal amount plus the full accrued interest. It's a long answer. Bear with us. After signing a loan agreement with the eligible borrower and disbursing credit to it under the scheme, a PFI will be entitled to apply to the Bank of Uganda, which administers the facility on behalf of government, for 50% government of Uganda contribution to the capital value of the loan disbursed to the borrower. In the event of default by any eligible borrower under the scheme, the total outstanding loan will become immediately due and repayable, and the PFIs will be required to make a demand upon the defaulting borrower for full payment of all amounts due and owing. The PFIs are required to undertake all reasonable efforts to ensure recovery of the loan in default, which efforts should be no less rigorous than the PFI would undertake to recover a loan not enjoying a partial contribution from GOU. To date, the entire credit facility has been disbursed from the government and partner financial institutions' investments in the following areas. The ACF is administered by Bank of Uganda under the supervision of the Ministry of Finance, although MAIF interfaces with Ministry of Finance and the private sector regarding the operational facility. The information available from the Bank for the BAMAU, the Bank Budget Monitoring and Accountability Report, indicates that since inception, The scheme has received 872 loan applications amounting to Uganda shillings 845,000.85 billion, of which Uganda shillings 408.62 billion has been disbursed to 668 eligible projects, with the government of Uganda refinancing up to 207.3 billion to respect PFIs by 31st of December 2019. That's the most current data. So, and then there was a question, whereas NADS claims to have given out many seedlings, the resultant outcome has not yet been filled. That was the statement from the committee. And they said, i.e., the percentage share of agriculture to the GDP has not changed much over time. That was the basis. Now this is what we are saying. Now agriculture sector grew by 4% and by 4.2% in the financial year 2019-20, up from 3.8% in the previous 4 years, and accounts for 45% of the country's exports. This growth didn't come from anywhere. This growth is largely because of a significant increase in the primary production of key commodities. To consolidate the gains and resultant outcomes, the following interventions will be undertaken. 1. The Ministry has strengthened collaborations and engagements between NADS and Director of Agricultural Services to work closely with the district local governments to continuously strengthen the linkage between agriculture extension and the entire agriculture support systems for the priority and strategic livestock and crop commodity value chains. This will help to ensure proper selection of enterprises, timely selection and preparation of farmers' provision of other required training and extension services and technical information to farmers on the management of enterprises, as well as improve access to improved technology, relevant research, market information, and financial services. Then we are going to have clustering and focusing of distribution of inputs in areas where there are emerging processing facilities for agro-industrialization, thereby creating areas of concentration. And then we are saying, as a way of improving the delivery of services and ensuring that the intended development objectives are attained, the NADS Secretariat, working with stakeholders, will roll out the area-based commodity clusters in selected sub-regions of the country. A commodity cluster is made up of a number of districts near each other and serves to concentrate value chain actors with experience in the community, provide the requisite infrastructure that taken together provide opportunities for success of scaling up and development of the relevant commodity value chains. And lastly, NADS will work closely with other stakeholders to establish regional farm service centers to complement the area-based commodity structures. The rural farm service centers is a one-stop center where farmers can get access to exchange services, agricultural inputs, including seed, livestock, plant materials, agrochemicals, hired farm equipment, among others. Also have access to value addition, agricultural finance, and market linkages. Madam Chair and members, those were our answers, and we believe that we answered them satisfactorily.
Thank you very much for those responses. Madam Minister, when the committee met on Monday, there were again additional concerns that members raised that I would like them also to raise now so that the ministry can answer. And I start with the Honorable Boyan.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. And we would like to go straight to page 16. Page 16 would like the ministry to provide a percentage of farming households with less than 2 acres of land, that would be excluded from the ministry's interventions in agro-industrialization program under NDP 3. Provide percentage of farming households with less than 2 acres of land, that would be excluded from the ministry's interventions in agro-industrialization under industrial program under NDP 3. The second query, you find it on page 18, and we require the ministry to provide a detailed explanation on completion of the development and expansion of Achak Sugar Factory. There's an arrangement where government has come in to support sugarcane growing in that region, and we want details on completion of the development of that project, Achak Sugar Factory. The other one is on page 19. On page 19, the committee requires progress by the ministry to procure multi-purpose anti-tick vaccine. What progress in procuring multi-purpose anti-tick vaccine? The other one is on efforts by the ministry to boost productivity of Nariri, and whether laboratories were actually built or there. Whichever progress is there, you need to give us that progress. Then the last one from me, then colleagues will also pick up, on details of the 10 agricultural zones and their specialties or centers of excellence, and the breakdown of value chains for each agricultural zones, specialty. We have talked about agricultural zones, but we need to get information on, how far in terms of implementation. So let me hand over to my colleague to also.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
I was requesting that maybe the response to that.
Okay.
Then we can.
Ask.
Okay.
We missed
One, the completion of a draft project. I have realized that we needed to manage complete, and we are giving them zero money. We have not stopped, we are still pursuing, but it depends on the budget allocation. As we stand now, it is zero budget. Now,
Maybe Chair, Honorable Chair,
Yes, please.
when you begin, it's just for our own. I think our understanding that government has actually put in a lot of money. Now, if we cannot put in more to complete the work, then how are the communities going to benefit, and how will government? That will be a total loss to both government and the community. So I don't know what you would envisage to make sure.
I was very clear that we have even taken the matter cabinet, and as far as I can see, these are the forums, Parliament and the cabinet, and we are doing so. Now, from the multi-purpose food vaccine, we are taking two lines. One is research and financing, number two is collaboration with Cuba. Cuban in the whole world have managed to get vaccine. And we are moving towards that. First of all, we have made plans for suppression. Before you do vaccine, we have suppressed the ticks. And we are zoning the country in two major zones, where there is resistance and where there is no resistance. But in all cases, we shall apply the parasite that is prescribed by scientists in those areas. And when you have suppressed, then you can introduce the vaccine. Whichever comes faster, we shall take it on. So we are pursuing it like that. Now, on providing farming household with 2 acres, we did a registration of the farmers, and I think the PS can answer that. There are boundaries. And I want to say that there is underfunding in the Ministry of Agriculture. There is still underfunding within underfunding in the animal sector. So we have been losing ground on the livestock sector. You know about the Entebbe. We went to Tororo, we lost Tororo. We are now in Maruzi. But we are trying our best. We have planned but I think as we go to the export market, we are thinking deeper about intervention in the agriculture. And we support, we really appreciate the support we send us.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Member, Minister. The question is, provide the percentage of farming households who are going to be excluded from NDP 3 with less than 2 acres. Honorable Members, we're not excluding anybody in NDP 3. The Ministry of Government will provide different interventions. For example, farmers with less than 2 acres will be catered for in the food security interventions, which are catered for in the plan. And this does not mean that they are going to be totally excluded. And this percentage, we don't have it yet. The study is yet to be commissioned to know how many have less than 2 acres.
Yes, Honorable.
Madam Chair,
Yes, I'm really fast.
really
Really some
fast.
query on what has already been raised.
No, something else. Not on that.
Then you wait until we raise it. Honorable Minister, we have not heard anything about the agricultural zones. So tell us about the centers of excellence. What are the zones doing?
Can I ask now to say something? I think it was in our report.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, members. Regarding the status of laboratory, which require being equipped, I want to submit as follows. The research laboratory at Wemita has been completed. It's only lacking the research laboratory for coffee and cocoa in Nakori, Kifuza, is near completion. The scheduled date actually 30th June 2021, and in the next financial year it will be due for equipping. The vaccine laboratory, which is one of the best, I think, in terms of design across the whole world, because it is 3-in-1 for anti-tick, FMD, and African swine fever, works is underway and scheduled for completion 30th June 2022, and thereafter it will be due for completion. And Madam Chair, we want to register progress in terms of milestones regarding anti-tick vaccine that out of the 9 milestones, Narok has so far attained 6 of those milestones. And the milestones go as follows. We have been able to constitute what we call the candidate vaccine molecules that have been constituted for them. We have been able to evaluate this in what is called a preclinical trial. We have data, this has been concluded. We have been able to evaluate this in a clinical trial using animals as subjects. This has been concluded. We have been able to administer different approaches, oral and intramuscular. Data has been concluded. We have been able to constitute what is called a multi-ectotype-based chimeric vaccine. Again, this has been constituted and is with us now under evaluation. Currently, we are producing what is called a batch vaccine that is meets world standards, and we are producing a total of 3,000 doses, which we shall use to test in agroecological regions to focus on a number of at least 10,000 animals. This is underway, and we are also now constituting an application to National Council of Science, National Drug Authority, and PAVAC to ensure that thereafter we are due for registration. So the only 3 remaining milestones is getting approval, doing area-wide vaccine validation, and then registration. Thereafter, we shall be ready to go as a country. We submit, Madam.
Thank you very much. Honorable Minister, I think what the committee wants to know is that the country is zoned into 10 agricultural zones, each with its own specialties and centers of excellence. And also, we need to know the breakdown of value chains for each of these agricultural zones. Like, for example, if you have put a place like Karamoja as one of the 10 zones, so what specialty is there? What is happening there? That is what we want to know. Or they are just zones, just there in the air. What are the specialties in those zones?
You know, we look at the comparative advantage and the priority commodities that we are already in my report. But I think we can have a detailed report submitted to you.
Yes, Honorable Minister, that is okay. But we as a committee that supports the sector and wishes the sector very well, because we have to succeed together. We want to know, where are these 10 zones? Where are they? Zone number 1, where is it? Number 2, number 3? That is what members want to know. And what?
Specialization.
Yes, and the specialization in those areas. Because now me, if I'm asked as a chairperson, where are these zones? I will be stuck like my members.
Honorable Chair.
And what are their specialties?
Thank you, my Honorable Chair and
Yes.
members, on this question. This issue has been worked on, and the zones have been clearly identified with their enterprises.
Yes.
But as time passed on, we noticed that they needed a review. And as we speak now, the committee is working on this review. Now that we are through with NDP 3, we are going to be able to succeed with the completing the zoning strategy, which I think the Commissioner Planning can be able to mention about, but I know work is in progress, and this will be presented once it has been completed. But the old one, we noted it had a number of gaps, and it's not worthwhile presenting to this committee at this particular moment.
And some areas they were not compatible in the enterprise is so selected.
Yes, Honorable Member.
Yes, Chair. For me, Chair, actually, when we discussed, we felt that we need to have like real structures in place, like, you know, a zone dealing with this activity, with this kind of personnel, with this kind of, you know, arrangements in place, so that you can be able to say this is a center of excellence located in Jinja, doing ABCD, covering Busoga region. I think that's okay. What we are trying to get from the ministry, so that you know that this zone is dealing with this, and these are the arrangements in place to achieve this. And actually, because when you were talking about on your page 6, something to do with support integrated planning and implementation of interventions under agro-industrialization program to remove the silo mentality. I think these are some of the things which can fit into the zones, because what you are aiming at is to assist farmers who can, so that even the small scale can be helped. You can maybe get fertilizers at a cheaper rate, those kind of things. But we hope to get a report on how this will translate into real tangible.
Thank you, through the chair. Allow me to ask the commissioner to tell us how far they have gone, because this, I know, is work in progress.
Thank you, PS. Through the chair. We are currently, the zoning strategy which we have been implementing was made in 2004, and currently we have been revising the zone alongside when we were writing NDP 3. The current strategy had 10 zones. That is the Highland Ranges, the Chuga Plains, the Lake Victoria Crescent, Northeastern Drylands, Northeastern Savannah Grasslands, Northwestern Savannah Grasslands, the Para Savannas, Pastoral Rangelands, Southwestern Farmlands, and the Western Savannah Grasslands. And each one of these had the various value chains that were supported by 2004. But because of time, the socio-economic structure in these areas has changed, and many farmers have taken on new value chains. So now the new zoning strategy which you've made, and which is going to be launched alongside launching the agro-industrialization implementation plan, has been refocused according to the new value chain. For example, at that time, we were not recognizing Kalanga as the oil palm. Now, Mayuke has become a hub of avocado. I'm giving examples. So we have now reprogrammed the zones ecologically, and also based on the soils and also the commodities. We shall share this new concept with the committee even before launch. We shall share with the secretary.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Based on that, yeah, I want to ask something similar. I also wanted to know whether we still have this issue of animal corridor, traditional, those things of animal corridor. It is linked to those zoning. I'm saying this because I think Noya had not been known for animal keeping, but we have so many cows that side, and I don't know whether the ministry is planning also to back up the district and kind of thing. Do we still have those traditional animal corridors?
It is not true that we don't know Noya as a factor. Because the government have interest in Botafai. We had in Botafai a farm which was actually serving Noya. And we know Noya really as one of the potential livestock farming in the area. But you know we had issues with Tsetse, and people finding gaps. Tsetse is one of those areas that stretches up to the water. So we have not lost focus. Maybe at an appropriate time I will come and represent this committee about the livestock plan,
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair. In the meeting on Monday, we were concerned, but we got interested in the re-establishment of cooperatives or support to small farmer groups. I know that we have the Youth Livelihood Program as an approach, we have the Women Empowerment, we now have the Mioga and so on. But the challenge of cooperatives as a means of delivering services to the people and increasing production and productivity and access to markets and actually increasing the wealth of our people cannot be overemphasized, Mr. Minister. Now, the challenge we have is that when we talk about cooperatives, there's a ministry which, the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives, which we think tends to take on the cooperative revitalization in this country. And yet, agriculture is the mainstay, or the well-being of the small farmers is actually our business as Ministry of Agriculture. I don't know what your plans are as a ministry in re-establishing the cooperatives. And in the same vein, I want to just get to know what the status of the Cooperative Societies Amendment Bill 2016 is, because this was passed on the 9th of May 2019. We don't even know whether it has been assented to by the President. I don't know whether you have information, Mr. Minister, sir. I will have another question after that one's been answered.
I don't have the immediate update of the fate of that.
Let me see the question.
What I can tell this committee is that the Ministry of Agriculture has been very busy aiding farmers from cooperatives. In the dairy sector, we put out budgets to do so. What you heard from the EDA about revamping the infrastructure, that when we have this infrastructure, we visit the cooperatives. And the model is working very well. When we look at the tractors we put in the budget, we focus on these cooperatives. Most of the cooperatives that are already existing, both in crop and livestock resources, are supported. So, we know that most of our farmers are smallholders. So working together, the only way to reach them is actually through the cooperative and to encourage them. I didn't want to rush that 2 acres, but we know every farmer gets intervention depending on how he or she is placed. So, I agree with you. The only way to push this agenda to meaningful results is through working together. And where we have a nucleus farmers, those producers of the same commodity benefit from the nucleus farmers.
Some agenda question. I've not seen in the document the ACDP program. I don't know if it is still running.
It's running.
Under which sector? Under which sector here? Because I'm not seeing it.
Well, the ACDP program is under growth, but is not covering the entire country. It's covering 57 districts, but we have written to cover the whole country. Because where it has been implemented, we have registered a lot of success. At first, it was not moving very well, but we reorganized it and it is moving.
No.
Mr. Minister, I have a question in relation to the tractors. Where I come from, we got 2 tractors under the last program. Unfortunately, I really don't see any cooperative arrangement. These 2 tractors were reassigned to open land for a sugar growing estate in, I think in the Bugisu someplace. I don't know whether you're following up what's going on with these tractors, because this has been the problem with this country. We had the first tractors to the sub-counties. The bosses use them to go out and have a drink in the evening, the thing gets flat in the middle of the road, they leave it there. Now we have the cooperatives apparently organized. And I'm sorry to say, they are very political. So you get a good cadre, give him a tractor, he doesn't know what to do with it, and he deploys it somewhere, and nobody knows what's doing. So the farmers are not benefiting. Now, my interest in the Cooperative Development Amendment Bill, the Cooperative Societies Amendment Bill, is that we should really have the law to govern this equipment, which we are very willing to pass in this budget. Unfortunately, you get the things, you give them somebody, and they're doing their own things, and the country loses. So until the law is in place and is enforced, I think one of you made it when you were doing the introduction. We have very good laws, but the operationalization still beats me.
Now, Honorable colleague,
Yes, sir.
first of all, I agree with you, and the Minister of Agriculture agree with you. What belongs to nobody is nobody. When these tractors were given to the sub-county, the chief, it became political. We gave those, and the maintenance was not there.
Okay.
So, one strong farmer would repair it, go and dig, and after 3 days they take it away from him. So it was not benefiting.
Okay.
So we thought wise that we now change to cooperative. But in the last batch, especially those which went east, they were what they call the, which groups, was it cluster, what? There's a terminology you use, and I don't like it myself. Because the assumption that they were going to formalize the cooperative. And I think what they're saying is true, that eventually they did not make it cooperative.
They did not.
You are going, there is a term you are using.
Farmer groups.
Farmer groups is the divergent. That's what causes the problem. And we are insisting now, it must be a registered cooperative and must be audited.
Mr. Minister, to receive the tractors, all this paperwork was there. The groups were known, the chairs, the organizations, the committees, and everything.
I agree with
but
you. We need to register.
we really have to get this thing done properly, or we'll get many more tractors, and they'll be owned by a few people, and nobody will own them, and that will be the end of the story. Well, I wouldn't like to dwell much on that one. The next one is the issue of how the agricultural credit finance system would benefit our small farmers. Because if, let's say, you got the cooperatives in place, we don't have a cooperative bank. We had it then. We don't have an agricultural bank. Can we work towards making sure that we reestablish something under the agricultural credit finance which supports the small farmers? On Monday, I mentioned this to my group, or to the team we had here. I happened to go to Madivani Sugar Works. And what happened there is that Madivani gets the money, and he issues stuff, material, whatever, to the outgrowers, but at a different interest rate. And I don't know whether anybody cares what the small farmers are getting this money at. And these sugar farmers were complaining. I don't want to get into the fact that they don't even know where to sell their cane, but somehow we have to find a way to help our farmers, because credit is expensive through the banks. And if we want them to develop or to improve their production, we may have to think about how the agricultural credit finance would benefit the small farmers across the country. And, well, how do we select them? All these criteria has to be put in place.
To supplement the question first.
Let me make a clarification.
Yes, sir.
You see, agricultural finance, we have 15 banks participating. And what is true that some banks are not really, most of the corporate banks operate on the Pareto principle.
Yep.
You know that 20% of the people control 80% of their money. So they are looking for the rich guys.
Yes.
So under this arrangement, the small farmers may not be successfully get served well. But we have a window of microfinance. The microfinance
support center.
And that is supposed to be the other groups. But the other groups can only succeed if they are organized. And I think what we need to really work together towards is to have our own bank as a vehicle to strategically reach those people. by putting more money in ADB and microfinance at the same time. I think something is being worked out, that I was not prepared. Because something is being worked out at both levels. Because we put more money in ADB to deal with the priority areas. And we have also put money in microfinance, which I think we need to work with finance and come up to the point. Because what he's saying is the only way forward to deal with those who are able and also to deal with the other small able.
Okay. Chair, I want to supplement more question. Madam Chair, with the issue of ACF, I think we need to rethink it. The committee needs to meet the Minister of Finance and Minister of Agriculture, or the ACF. I was in the Finance Committee and we were discussing this time and again. And the condition being put for ACF is even worse than ordinary bank loans. Madam Chair, I happened to go to Post Bank in my district to try to access, because I always want to test everything. They refused giving me ACF, but they gave me their own money. Because the ACF, you must have a land title. If you don't have a land title, you cannot access ACF. And Mr. Minister, on a sad note, we had a very, not rich as such, but someone who had passion in agriculture. And he tried to invest. They frustrated him until they sold his very prime plot in Buya. I moved throughout the place, including going up to Bank of Uganda to help save this man, but they sold his house. And the officials in Bank of Uganda are the ones who bought his house. That money is not accessible. When you go to these banks, they will give you their loan because the condition, they want land title. If you don't have a land title, you cannot access. Tell me which farmer can access that money. And money is just being put there. We were in the Finance Committee. You know where I was. So I really don't know if it is meant to help farmers in this country. It's better you take the money from the commercial banks, you put it, and we have sung about this ADB, we have sung about cooperative banks. 10 years is ending. When I'm in this parliament, we have not even moved a step. So I really don't know. I'm saying 10 years I'm in parliament, we have not even moved a step. So I really don't know. It is so frustrating.
Commercial rates.
Yes.
That's what they do. Actually, they sell. Actually, what those banks do is selling.
I fought very hard.
That is it.
One group I rescued, the other one is under. And when I was following, I just realized that the banks want to make profits.
Yeah. Actually, they're using our money
exactly
to make money.
That's how they use it.
They use the excuse that you need a land title. But if you need your money, you have to provide security. So I think we need to come up with one voice, because we are challenging the agriculture sector, that we are now liberalized, we cannot have one bank dominating what. But I think if we have to reach there, we must find a vehicle to do what we want it to do.
Mr. Minister, I think that's where we should be going. There is no way we're going to keep saying the private sector in this private sector-driven economy has got to decide everything for us. We are Ugandan. And until we get away from this idea that what we are told is what we do, this is really sad. Because you cannot borrow money to grow beans at a commercial rate. You'll surely lose. And if you want our farmers to benefit, I do appreciate that we have to work together. And that's why we ask some of these tough questions. Thank you.
Chair, let me just add.
Honorable members,